every day.
Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I saw that it was starting to rain, so hopefully you beat the rain or brought a big umbrella for the way home. Glad to have you all here. Thank you for coming. Those of you that don't know me, my name is Linda Kurtz, and I work in the Rady Career Center. My group that I work with is the Flex and Weekend students as well as the alumni. So if we haven't met before, I'm available to you as a resource to have a chat about where you are in your career, maybe where you want to go. Give me a call. You can find me on the Rady Alumni Network page under Careers. So we are going to take a minute to go through some introductions with our panelists. So bear with me. You'll have to listen to me talk for a few minutes while I go through those introductions of their bios. And then we'll open it up to hear the candidates' perspectives about career transition and advancement. I know it's going to be a great evening. And again, thank you for coming. So we're going to get started on the far end with Ken Schmitt. Ken actually was a panelist for us last year, so thank you, Ken, for coming back a second year. Ken is a founder and president of TurningPoint Executive Search and Sales Leadership Alliance. He's a San Diego native. He launched TurningPoint Executive Search in 2007, and his firm has made nearly 300 placements in sales, marketing, and operations. TurningPoint works with national clients in numerous industries and a variety of business structures, from startup to mature businesses. In 2015, TurningPoint was named Best Sales Recruiting Firm in California by Corporate Vision. Pretty impressive. An avid user of social media, Ken maintains one of San Diego's largest LinkedIn networks with a profile that ranks on the top 100% of all users. Top 1%, of all users. Ken serves on several boards in Southern California. He earned his BA in economics from the University of San Diego. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you.
Next, we have John Quinn, sitting next to Ken, managing partner with the Lucas Group, a national executive search firm, as managing partner in Lucas's military division. John connects client companies to the U.S. military's elite performers. John helps his clients to develop and fulfill critical staffing initiatives across key functional areas, including general management, operations, engineering, marketing, and business development. Prior to joining the Lucas Group, John's roles included Vice President of Client Development for a startup and Business Finance Manager for a Fortune 100 corporation. Preceding his time in business, John served 5 years as a U.S. Navy nuclear submariner. John earned a BS in Mechanical Engineering from the U.S. Naval Academy and his MBA with honors from Harvard. John currently serves on the board of directors of the Harvard Business School Alumni Association's Orange County chapter. Welcome. We have Mary Beth Madick, Vice President Recruiting with PEMCO, a global investment management solutions firm. Mary Beth brings 15 years of professional experience in finance, accounting, and recruiting roles, primarily in financial services. After a stint as an auditor CPA with Ernst & Young, Mary Beth transitioned into financial services, working in various investment banking roles with Goldman Sachs in New York. She's parlayed her finance and accounting experience to recruit for similar professionals. Mary Beth was the director for Robert Half Management Resources, a financial staffing agency, and in 2014 she joined PEMCO, where she is focused on recruiting top talent, primarily for its portfolio and product management groups, as well as client management, legal, and funds finance departments. Next, we have Scott Hanley, talent acquisition recruiter with Intuit, an accounting and financial software solutions firm. Prior to joining the Intuit team in early 2015, Scott had served in numerous capacities at the University of San Diego. Scott attended USD for both his undergraduate and graduate studies work. He served in the Navy from 1996 to 2002 as a hospital corpsman, and he currently serves as a department head for Navy Public Affairs. Scott works across all 3 products and ecosystems at Intuit: QuickBooks, TurboTax, and Mint.com. While he's primarily working with early career product development and technical roles, he also fills roles globally across all disciplines. And then we have Jessica Serrano, Director of Talent Acquisition at Lytics, a technology services company. Jessica has worked in human capital and talent acquisition for nearly 20 years in a variety of organizations, including the Walt Disney Company and small to medium-sized tech commerce companies headquartered in San Diego. Jessica enjoyed her time working with Provide Commerce, where she helped to grow the business from a $250 million to a $600 million plus company. She recently joined Lytics, where she's been enjoying the opportunity to build the talent acquisition infrastructure to support double-digit growth over the last 24 quarters. She's a San Diego native and alumni of UC Santa Barbara. So thank you, everyone. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to take a couple of questions from the audience so that our panelists can know a little bit more about you, and they'll have a starting point for their responses. So how many of you have between 5 and 10 years of post-MBA work experience? Raise your hand. Okay. How about 10 or more years? Okay. And then how about 15 or more years total work experience? Okay. Pretty experienced audience. And how many of you have worked with an executive level recruiter in the past, either in-house recruiter or an external in a search firm? Okay. And how many would say that they found their current role or started in their current role with the assistance of a recruiter?
Wow.
Huh?
We are so good at our job, aren't we?
That's interesting.
Glad we're here. Exactly right.
Maybe we need to redefine assistance. May not have been the best question.
It's all about networking. If they got jobs from networking,
Yes.
that's what it's all about.
It is all about networking, man.
It is. Okay, and how many people are considering aggressively looking for a new position in the next 6 to 18 months? Quite a few of you. I think you're here in the right place tonight, okay? And then how many are considering, a little more lukewarm, but considering a career transition, but maybe into a new functional area or a new industry? Okay. Give you kind of an idea for the audience? Give you a feel? Super. All right. So I have some prepared questions, and what I thought our format tonight would be I'd throw some questions out for the panelists, we hear some commentary from them, and if that has sparked some questions on your side, go ahead, I'll take a few questions along the way so we can kind of dig deep on some of the topics. I will reserve time at the end, about 15 minutes, for your questions, so don't think you have to get everything answered now. If it doesn't really fit with what we're talking about, save it for later, you'll get a chance, okay? And my job will be just to keep us moving along. It's about 7 o'clock now, and we have until 8. We can even stay over after that if we want, but I want to respect the panelists' time and come to a close at 8, but you're certainly welcome to stay in that order. Right? Any questions before we get rolling? All right. Okay. So first question, Ken, why don't we start with you? How's that?
All right.
So what do you find are the most important points to consider for someone mid-career making the transition to senior management or executive management level?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, a little bit of a context. So my firm focuses on placing. Can you guys hear me okay? Should I use the microphone? Okay. So we focus on placing sales and marketing and operations professionals predominantly. It's about 90% sales and marketing and about 10% or so of operations side. So I'm going to speak to it kind of from that context in terms of the types of functions. In terms of kind of getting to the next step in your career, whether you're already senior and you want to go more senior or you're mid-level and you want to go to the senior level, it's really all about learning what it is that the person above you is doing, right? Because you got to make sure that you're doing your job without any question, without any equivocation, that you're doing your job very, very well before you can think about what the next step's going to be. So back to the whole comment about networking, align yourself with people that are that next step above you. Networking through other folks that went to the same school that you went to, through UC system, wherever it may be, and find those people that you can really learn from and get a sense for what they do, and then start asking about doing those tasks, those responsibilities in your current role. That's going to help you get more marketability and be more prepared, if you will, for that next step also.
Maybe you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say, and I agree wholeheartedly with everything Ken said, but as much as you can, know what you want. I talk to many people at that mid-level to senior level that will come to me and say, you've seen my resume, you know my background. What do you think you could have at your firm that would be a good fit for me? What's a good fit for my skill set? And honestly, I don't know. I don't know your background as well as you do. So it is incumbent upon you to really know what you want. And that takes a lot of effort. It takes many conversations with many different people. And that's one of the great things about networking is that you can have that opportunity to really understand what people do. And don't focus so much on, if you say today, I want to be XYZ person. That's great, that's a starting point. But that will you might pivot 3, 4, 10 times until you get to what it is you really want to do. So as much as you can, do the research, do the homework to figure out what it is you really want. And you can articulate that to people.
I think we're going to beat networking
To death, yeah.
to death because it is really important. So I guess I won't talk about that too much right now, but I think one of the things you need to do, and this is just echoing what they've already said, is look at the tools that people who are in those positions, look at the tools that they've used, look at their certifications. There's things out there that get your foot in the door for those positions that you're really seeking, like Scrum Master and Lean Six, and there's all sorts of things that you can be looking at. But look at the people that are in those positions, look at the tools that they're using, and the certifications and degrees that they have, and I think that'll be really beneficial.
I'd like to speak to just what Kim was talking about in terms of your role. Too many people are looking to jump fast. One of the biggest mistakes you can make, whether you're 2 years into a career out of business school, if you're 23 and 2 years out of college and an opportunity, is to think that I've got to get to the next job immediately. You've got to perform in the job that you're in. It's really critical. In order to demonstrate, you can quickly learn, quickly acclimate to that culture, understand what the company is trying to accomplish, and you want to be that person who's going to take on extra projects. Right? Don't overwhelm yourself. Too many people will sign up for 3 things and then do them average. You want to sign up for one extra thing, for maybe a mentor that's down the hall, that's in a different department that you might be interested in. Maybe you do some work for that individual, him or her, after hours. Figure out a way that you can shine and demonstrate your desire to learn and desire to grow while continuing to perform in your role. Too many times, and I'm sure Mary Beth sees this too, is like, well, gee, you've been in like 4 jobs in 7 years in 3 different parts of the country. Who are you? What do you want? What do you want to accomplish, right? It goes to her question. You have to know who you are. I took this class at business school 20 years ago, and I wish I took it more seriously. I think I did a pretty good job of focusing on it, but it was self-assessment and career development. You all need to be self-assessing all the time. If you want to be able to be promotable and be in a position of success in any organization, at any level, especially as you become more senior, you need to be self-aware. You need to be understand what path you're on, and you need to be able to articulate that to everyone around you, your subordinates, your seniors. So.
Perfect.
I have a phrase that I use to really just complement what John just said, and I call it your professional DNA. You should always be self-assessing, know what your DNA is, and DNA stands for your drive, your niche, and your accomplishments. Whether you're writing your resume, putting your LinkedIn profile together, networking, in an interview, know what that niche is. What is that drive? What are those accomplishments? And be able to articulate it, to John's point, very clearly and in a very compelling fashion.
Thank you.
A little bit of a plug for my department too for careers. Thank you.
We're here for you.
All right. So moving along, what skills and experiences are most important for someone to focus on in their career to best prepare for the stepping stone to the next level? So specifically more skills and experiences.
Jessica, start. I would say get uncomfortable with whatever you're doing. So, take on that assignment that your manager asks you to do, even if you feel like you're not prepared to do it, and get uncomfortable there. And if you are going to make career changes and decisions throughout your professional life, make sure you're thinking strategically about where you're going to what step you're going to move into, and think about, is this a new business model I'm going to be learning? Is this a new revenue model I'm going to be learning or be exposed to, or a different vertical? Because that all will kind of broaden your business acumen so that you can pivot easier into other roles.
I'd like to talk to the experience part of that.
Sure.
I think in the beginning of your career, whether it's coming out of undergrad or many of you are MBAs or currently students here at UCSD, there are certain skills you want to be able to put on the resume and be able to articulate in an interview so that you can get your foot in the door, as Scott was mentioning. Whether it's Goldman Sachs, a regional consulting firm, if it's an operations program manager role, you want to come to the table with those skills and be able to demonstrate that. But as you progress in your career and you look to take more and more responsibility on, the experiences play a much more important role in your ability to demonstrate promotability. You have to be a person that can adapt and an individual that can take steps that are courageous in some eyes, in terms of maybe moving the business model in a different direction, or taking advantage of an opportunity that others may miss, simply because you're going to raise your hand and say, I'm going to take my team down this path and this is why. And you have a contingency plan. If it doesn't work out, you get back on the main bus that everyone's on. But if you can take those risks and chances and demonstrate through your experience that you have the courage to do that, people are really going to gravitate to those individuals. Inside the company and even externally, as you update your LinkedIn profile and stuff, you could say, decided a new business model for our company, and these are the specific tangible results that were delivered based on my leadership. Not, I was able to do the job with 6 other people who have done in the last 20 years really well. That's commendable. I don't want to say that's a bad thing, but it's not something that we're looking for. We're looking for people that are going to really be stars, because that's the kind of talent that our organizations want to hire.
Intuit is a values-based company, and just going back to what John was saying about taking risks and just doing things differently and getting uncomfortable. One of Intuit's values is be bold, and there's 7 other values. I won't get into all of them, but when they're talking about values, they're talking about at work and in your career, and pretty much everything else in your social and professional sphere. But being bold is huge. If you're bold in your job, good things are going to happen, whether it's at that company you're at or another company down the road. So just to echo what he was saying, be bold.
Excellent. I like it. But it should
Can I add one more thing to that?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, I don't want to dominate the conversation. The hardest decisions you're ever going to make deal with people. You've got to be able to handle people well. Even as an individual contributor, professional in an organization, you're on a team, you're in a cross-functional environment, what you do affects others. It doesn't matter if they report to you. You've got to be able to manage people really well. I fell on my face a couple times at the Walt Disney Company because I'm kind of that hard-charging MBA type with the analytical horsepower, and I want to solve problems. Well, that doesn't work so well when certain things have gone a certain way over a period of time, and that's a culture of an organization. You can't be a ramrod without having the context of the situation you're in. But if you can leverage your skill and then come alongside someone, hey, Mary Beth, let's talk through this. Help me understand how I can impact the organization in an effective way. Too many people also try to do all this stuff in the first year. Improve yourself, demonstrate worth, have people be excited about this individual on their team. Then you can start challenging people more. If you try to do it in 3 months, you're going to fall on your face. I mean, we showed up on our submarine as 23-year-olds, and we were in charge of millions of dollars of equipment and 10 people that worked for us. And the senior chief that reported to us was been in the Navy for 20 years. How can I possibly know more than that individual? But year in and year out, you see the ensign show up and say, I'm in charge, I'm the boss, I've got this on my shoulder, and you don't. Don't be that person. Make sure that you can manage people and your interactions really well, and then that's going to really help you shine in the eyes of people that are looking for you to take on more responsibility.
Linda, can I just say one thing also? So, I mean, I think what John's saying is exactly right. Just a quick point about your LinkedIn profile and your resume as well. I'm amazed by how often I see people that are in senior leadership roles and their entire resume and LinkedIn profile, all it talks about, all it addresses is just hard metrics, which are certainly important and certainly a big part of why you're in business or why you're in a business. But to your point, what about the softer side, the people side? What if you were the department where people came in, got trained, did a phenomenal job, and got promoted out someplace else? What if you were the person that started the rotational program in your organization? What about you came into an organization or a department where they had 50% turnover rate prior to you coming on board, and you lower that down to 12%. These are all softer things that, in the big scheme of things, they contribute to the top and bottom line, but they're people related. They're kind of the human aspect of the business that I think gets missed an awful lot on resumes.
And just to touch on that on LinkedIn, and I'm sure we're going to get to this later about social media and LinkedIn. I am so surprised when I see more mid-level to senior people on LinkedIn that have absolutely nothing there. That is one of my primary tools, and I'm sure my colleagues here would say the same thing. So, it's absolutely important that you put some relevant details, and it's all of those skills. It's the metrics, it's the soft skills, and in as concise a manner as you can, but not having anything, just having a line item of you're an executive vice president. Well, that's great. Executive vice president means something at PIMCO, and it's different at another Intuit or wherever. So, I can't stress that enough of putting in those relevant details there.
And don't have a picture of you and your dog and your cat in your LinkedIn picture.
Please.
You're laughing. I got
Please.
one just yesterday
Please.
from a guy who was a really senior, it wasn't a CEO, but he was a president COO, and his LinkedIn picture was him, his spouse, and his cat. And literally my whole team, all my employees said, look at this LinkedIn picture. Can you believe this? Because
Right.
it's not
Exactly.
Facebook, it's not Tumblr, it's not all the Instagram and Pinterest. It's LinkedIn.
Now, if
It's
you're running your own
professional.
ship, though, if this is your own little deal and it's your business, have at it. But if you're a professional that wants to engage in the marketplace, don't do that, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
show,
that's what it
show,
comes down
show
to.
up in your photo the way you show up to work, right? So if you're in a suit and tie or if whatever, that's how you do it, right?
I know a guy who put a 12-pack of beer next to his face at the beach, and he used that as his LinkedIn profile for years, and was always looking for work, but he never changed it.
Shocker, yeah. Now, if you're trying to get a job at Stone Brewing,
I was gonna say,
and
right,
you're-
right, right.
you're
San
a
Diego,
brewmaster,
craft
then
beer
yeah, that makes sense, right?
Absolutely.
But for 99.9% of the population, that's probably not the right picture. Yeah.
So what about a doctor in scrubs? That would be okay because it shows their profession?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, focus
Okay,
on
but be very
a
careful.
role.
For the most part, it's
Yeah.
a professional suit.
Right.
Know your audience.
Know your
Exactly. I
audience.
think people take one picture and they use that for all their social media, right? And it should be, I mean, it's like advertising in general. You don't have the same message and the same delivery for every one of your audiences, right? You tailor it, you customize it, and it's geared towards who you're speaking to. It's the same thing with your LinkedIn profile.
And I'll just say real quick, as a recruiter, when I see a resume, doesn't matter what the job is, I am almost always immediately going to your LinkedIn.
Right.
It's used. So I don't know what the statistics are. You guys might know, but there's a very high percentage of people are hired directly through their LinkedIn profile, or at least recruited directly from LinkedIn.
The percentage is 98% of recruiters look at a LinkedIn profile before they contact a candidate.
Yeah.
I want to know the 2% that don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are they doing?
I don't know. Hiring the guy with the 6
Inflation improvement.
Yeah, right, exactly, right, yeah.
Exactly.
Anyway, Scott, that was a great entry into my next question. What are the best ways to stand out with a recruiter? And maybe you're going to say something about LinkedIn. Is it a resume? Is it LinkedIn? We know there's applicant tracking systems, right? So help the audience understand, how do they stand out? How do they get the attention of a recruiter? Does anyone want to start?
I can start.
Okay.
Sorry,
Go
I'll
ahead.
go for it. There is a number of different ways, but I always find, kind of back to my earlier point of knowing what you want, being concise, and then help me help you. When you reach out to me in a concise blurb, tell me 3 or 4 sentences about yourself and what you're looking for, so that I can easily, once I know your background and what you're looking for, then I can easily connect you to somebody else. Unfortunately, and I'm sure everybody up here feels this way, we are thankfully inundated with
Talent. Yeah.
talent, which is fantastic. That's what we do, but it makes it incredibly difficult if we don't have an easy mechanism to get your information out. So I always ask people, like, write down your elevator pitch and send that to me,
Oh, that's
and
great.
then I can easily
Absolutely.
forward it on to people. So that's one thing that stands out to me when people do that. And then, follow up with me, but keep that to a respectable minimum. I'll get back to you, but having that blurb is so key, I feel.
I really like your point about the elevator pitch. You don't realize how busy we are. And when we're on the phone with you, we want to connect with you. We're personable people and kind of in this role because by nature we have an affinity for that and we're skilled at it. But we're talking to lots and lots of people every day. So you have to realize that we're going to say, hey, look, I want to connect with you. Let's call next week. Give me your elevator pitch, quick cover letter and an email, your resume. I want to be able to take a look at it, talk to my team, and we'll go from there. And then I'll get 2-page dissertation. I can't read that. Or I'll get one sentence, hey, I want a job in San Diego. Well, everyone else does too. Right? Differentiate yourself with a simple, clean, concise email. To Mary Beth's point, it really helps us help you.
And I think staying true to your passion really shows, if you stay true to your passion, it shows in lots of different actions. And as Linda said, we have ATSs that can tell when you apply to 20 different jobs at the company and all different departments. And so that sends a red flag to recruiters. Does this person really know what they want, and are they focused and going to stay true to what they want? Are they going to get in and jump around the organization? And kind of fear of commitment or adding value. But also too, like Mary Beth said, help us, help you. And again, stay true to that passion, and it will come out in your resume. So if I've recruited for all sorts of roles, but if you're a copywriter, let your personality come out in your copy, and your copy should be compelling. That's what we're probably hiring you to do, is create compelling copy for the company. If you're a senior level executive, or you're moving into a director plus role, it should be concise. It should be results driven, not only results, but it should be very clear about what problem did you solve for the organization and what results did you drive. And like Ken said, do add, if you're going to be leading people and you're passionate about that, make sure you include the results you drove around leading people in the organization, motivating them, changing, impacting morale for the positive, et cetera, being able to influence, leadership, executive leadership, as well as, your direct reports and your peers.
Great. So what if the person isn't ready to make this transition in their career now, but some of the people in the room are ready for a transition, so great advice, but others are halfway through an MBA, or they're happy where they are and they're not quite ready for the next move? How do they start to develop that relationship with you now for something in the future? Scott?
Well, step one, go to events like this. Start your own brand, or start working on your brand, meeting people, start doing your research. I think that's key. We can't hire you now. You're in school. Maybe we can, depending on your experience, but just start building your brand and start talking to people. Use the Career Center. Use the workshops. I also work quite a bit with early career folks. I'm talking 21, 22-year-olds, sometimes even teenagers. And we do workshops, or help at workshops that help them with their 45-second pitch. So things like that. You can, even though you guys are more senior, you can start working on those things. Start working on your public speaking. Work on the copy, on those emails. Work on your resume. Do the resume workshops. Have people look at your resume. There's all sorts of things that you can do.
Yeah, I know, we don't want to beat up the networking, but hand over heart, the number of people that we hire at PIMCO is through networking or referrals. So, and referrals, I look at referrals differently in terms of is a personal versus work referral. I obviously, or maybe not so obviously, but I will always look at a work referral first because that person knows what that person did on the job. So even if you are maybe never working with somebody before, if you volunteered with them, if you did some sort of work-related exercise with them that they can vouch for your skills, that is always better. I'll always look at that and give some credit to that. So I would say network and figure out who your referral network most importantly is.
Okay. As a show of hands, how many of you feel like you're comfortable in a networking situation like tonight? You enjoy going out and meeting people? Okay, because it's not for everybody. I asked that question for this reason. I think one of the things that is true for a lot of things, especially networking, is having a strategy, right? Having a game plan. I have people ask me all the time, hey Ken, what group should I go to? You're involved in a lot of groups, where should I go? And I always answer the question with the question, well, it depends. Who do you want to meet? I think a lot of people take kind of a shotgun approach. They say, I need to network, but they kind of do things that isn't really, relevant for where they want to go. So maybe you're in, I talked to somebody who was in product marketing management, forgot where, earlier tonight, and he moved into Ali, right in the back? All right, thank you, yeah. And so he moved in from, he's over at Illumina, so moved from a product marketing role over to product management, right? Did I get that correct? More or less? Okay, there you go, thank you. So making that move is not easy, right? But getting out there and networking both within your organization, in your company, no matter what size it's going to be, going to other events that are being hosted by different departments internally is one way to do it. But also, if eventually you're planning on making a change and leaving that company, get out there and go to other organizations, right? If you're an operations person, you should know some salespeople. Go to sales networking events. If you're in marketing, you should know some folks on the IT and the technology side. Go to those events. So don't just stay within your own ecosystem, if you will, but branch out. right? The more diverse your network is and the more targeted it is, the more effective it's going to be long term.
Just one thing to add to that. It's so important to be comfortable networking. And obviously you're here tonight, so you have some degree of it. But then what's the next step? It's taking that network that you have and using it appropriately. It's difficult. Sometimes it can be very difficult to ask for help and to ask for help from people maybe that you just have a superficial relationship with. You've met them for 5 minutes at a networking session. But be comfortable and develop that network. Maybe you meet them 5 minutes here, but then you're going to see them 3 weeks from now at another event. Continue that relationship, build that relationship. That's how eventually you may find your next step.
A real quick networking story. I met John probably maybe 3 summers ago. I applied for a job at the Lucas Group.
He was referred to me too.
I was.
Alan Lerchbacher.
Yeah, Alan Lerchbacher. And
personally, I've worked with Alan before too, so.
Yeah, and Alan is one of the most connected people I know. Mike in the back, he knows Alan as well, and
he's a trip.
And I applied for the job, and I sent Alan, who's a confidant, good friend, and I just sent him an email, and I said, hey, do you know anybody at the Lucas Group? And he emailed me right away, said, hey, give me a call the next morning, or give me a call tomorrow morning. Next thing I know, my resume was either in front of you or in front of one of his colleagues. Yeah. The automated resume ended up somewhere that it probably shouldn't have been, but the fact that I just made that call to somebody in my network to get my resume in front of the right people, I ended up not working for Lucas Group, but it got in front of the right people.
Anything else on networking? That was one of my questions, so since we're already talking about it.
Well,
the importance of networking and tips.
The adaptability and flexibility in your approach to networking needs to be there. I mean, I agree with the need to be focused and making sure you're not doing the shotgun approach. But as you kind of roll out your unique selling proposition, which is what I call the elevator pitch, you want to be able to test it out in different environments, right? So you don't know necessarily what might work in a particular type of industry or functional area. So you want to try it out. I actually wrote a white paper for the Lucas Group on networking for introverts. So maybe I'll send that to you, and you can send it out. I mean, it's pretty basic, pretty simple approach, but it's having a game plan when you go into a room, right? And connecting with people personally really is fun. I mean, that kind of like breaks. It's like the icebreaker. You have icebreakers in interviews, but the icebreaker in the networking is having some kind of personal connection in some way. I did it tonight with these folks here I'm sitting with. And actually found out that Scott Farrow, who used to work for Lucas Group and us, is now on her team. So it's like we're all interconnected world. But just make sure you're adaptable and flexible, because we want to be able to see that.
And as an introvert myself, which I think is often not the profile of a recruiter, I think I look at networking totally differently because I'm not comfortable walking into a group and not knowing anybody. If you stick to your passion and you just get involved in groups and professional associations and groups that align with that passion, and I can go and talk to people about recruiting all night long, or about talent acquisition and talent management all night long, but I talk to other professionals in that. If you're thinking about doing a career change in 12 to 18 months, that's plenty of time for you to start figuring out what types of associations you want to get involved in, or professional groups, and then start to have a purpose there and learning about that organization or about what they do, and then kind of integrating yourself that way with a purpose versus just going to purely networking events. That's spoken from an introvert.
One other thing I'd like to add: human beings are quid pro types, right? We want to give and receive. We want. So the way you can help us is that you send us referrals, or you suggest we connect to someone, or you figure out a way that perhaps you can hire from us, right? I mean, us as a professional recruiting world, where we're actually working for clients who are hiring people. If you do those kinds of things, that'll get us on your radar screen, because many of you in middle of your career are going to be hiring people. You're going to have a team of folks that are working for you. Find out in your particular niche who might be the best recruiters in your space. reach out to them. Hey, I just took this managerial role. I've got a team of 6, 7 people might need to hire. Love to get your insight on that. Maybe you never end up hiring from that individual, but you built a relationship with him or her. I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, I have a couple of tips also. So, I mean, to your point exactly, it's got to be a two-way street, right? So when you go to a networking event, certainly your goal is a bit selfish, and rightly so, that you want to meet people that are going to be helpful and relevant for your network. But remember, the person that you're talking to has that same goal, right? So the biggest turnoff for folks that are out there networking is somebody who walks into it as a one-sided conversation. It's all about them, help me, help me, help me, and there's never any questions. It's not a dialogue, it's a monologue, right? So that's a big turnoff. So make sure, there's the expression "with them." You guys have heard of "what's in it for me." I always use "with it." What's in it for them? Right? Why is someone going to be willing to help you out? Well, only if you ask them how you can help them. Hey, I'm networking quite a bit. I'm going to these 3 organizations. I sit on this board. Any of the folks that I interact with, would they be helpful for you? It's a really simple question, right? Ask them what they're doing. Don't just talk, but do a lot more listening and engage as well. That's the first thing. Second thing, so I always joke because I go to a lot of morning events, and I hate coffee and I don't drink tea either. But the best way, if you are an introvert or if you're someone who doesn't like to network and just walk up to a stranger and start talking, the best way, I think, to start networking is to get in line for something to drink or for some food. So no matter what event you go to, go up there, get in line for coffee or for tea, whatever, which I make myself drink tea, even though I can't stand it, because I want to network. I want to meet somebody. And it's much easier being in line, waiting for tea or for food or whatever. You've got somebody in front of you. You've got somebody behind you. All it takes is turning around or turning to the person in front of you and saying, hey, is this your first time at this event? Right? Don't say the old, hey, do you come here often? Don't use that. But you want to say, have you seen the speaker before? Are you a member of this organization? That kind of thing. And you're having a discussion, and lo and behold, you get your coffee, your tea, you move out of line, and oh my gosh, now I'm actually networking. It wasn't quite as difficult as maybe you made it out to be. So I've been networking for a long time, as I know everybody else has, and I use that tip now, even 20 some odd years later. So.
I like that. I'm going to use that.
A lot more tea and coffee will be sold nowadays.
So I think I'm going to go off the grid here a little bit from our plan. We've talked a lot about networking in terms of building your relations, building your brand, building your connections. But what if you are in that mode where you do want to make your transition and you're meeting people, and part of that follow-up, I think Mary Beth said, maintain the relationship, follow-up. Any other suggestions, though? They've met you tonight, or they've met a recruiter somewhere else, or a hiring manager, and they're like, okay, I really want to get their attention because that is a target company. How much is too much? What's the right approach to really get in front of that person?
So we always have, I'm just going to say this, we have this joke in recruiting that, people say, hey, when should I check in with you? And I'll say, hey, I'm not a hotel, please don't check in. Right? So we want you to stay in touch. We want you to stay connected. We don't need you to call us every 2 weeks.
Please.
Yes, or even every 3 weeks. I mean, I'm sure we all probably have the same situation. We're all getting 300 to 400 emails every day, not including what's coming in through LinkedIn. It's a lot to have to manage through. It's an awful lot. So make it relevant, make it consistent, certainly, but don't make it overly frequent, where then you become someone who's like, oh, it's Paul again, it's Tom again, it's Sally again, right? We're going to keep you on the radar screen, and just trust us to know that when the right situation, when the right job comes up, if you're in our database, if you put a good resume together, if your LinkedIn profile is sufficient, you're going to hit our radar screen, I guarantee it.
Right. Yeah.
That's well said.
And I'll just add, when you do reach out, and as Ken said, not every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, but when it is at a reasonable time, don't reach out with the expectation that maybe I don't remember every single thing that we talked about. So it's always helpful. Send your resume. Again, if we had this conversation of, yes, I will help you, or yes, I'll reach out to a hiring manager that we talked to, send me all your information as much as it can be packaged up so I can easily then work with it. Unfortunately, I'd love to say that we're all so organized. We have everything in different folders and we can easily grab information, but I can't stress that point enough, that help me help you. Concise, packaged up.
And don't assume that because we had a discussion maybe on our cell phones that we all of a sudden decided to put you in our cell phone as a contact. I can't tell you how often I get an email, hey Ken, this is Paul, any jobs? first of all, Paul who?
Yeah.
You know how many Pauls I know in my system, right? And secondly, I don't remember your background. To your point, I don't know what you're looking for. So I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm just realize that we're dealing with lots and lots and lots of people every day. So just reach out in a respectful manner, and we will do our best to get back to you as soon as possible.
Okay. Any questions from the audience on networking? Otherwise, I'm going to kind of move along to maybe sizing the market and talking about market needs. Did anybody have a question? Maybe around Twitter or Facebook or maybe other social media?
I mean, given the importance of networking and a lot of executive or senior level positions get filled by people that are already affiliated with one or more people on the executive team, it seems like the best approach to getting into a company that you want to get into at a senior level is really to work your network more. At what point does a recruiter, an executive recruiter, come in? What role does the executive recruiter play?
So I'll start. So I used to have this graphic that I would use when I would do presentations and do a lot of career coaching as well. About 80 to 82% of jobs are filled through networking. Okay, about 20% are filled between a combination of online applications and recruiters. The challenge is that most job seekers flip that around. Most job seekers rely 80% of the time on recruiters. And if they don't get a job from a recruiter, they think, oh, there's nothing out there, recruiters suck, blah, 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 whatever it is. But the odds are, and as you move further up the ladder in terms of your career, you're going to be more reliant on that network. So just make sure, in my opinion, that your time spent is relevant and appropriate based on where you're most likely to get that job. So spend 80% of your time, whatever that time is, based on your situation, working your network. And spend about 20% with job applications, maybe more so if you're really junior or if a government job or that kind of thing, and 20% with the applications and with recruiters. So that's what I recommend. And I am a recruiter, but I'm saying that's the way it usually goes.
Absolutely. I mean, I tell anyone that reaches out to me, you have to have a multi-pronged approach. Mm-hmm. You're going to war to find an opportunity for yourself. And I love to be an asset for you, but I'm just one of many tools in your war chest. You got to put it all together and go after it. And you're most likely to get a job through your network. You really are. Mm-hmm. So we say that every day to people.
And in certain areas, like San Diego, for example, we were talking about this beforehand, yeah. It's a really well-connected town, which is fantastic if you're well-connected, right? So if you're here and you've got a good network that's diverse and it's relevant, they're going to help you out quite a bit. If you're more insular and you're just kind of doing your job heads down day in and day out, if you find yourself in job search mode, you're going to be starting from square one. It's going to take some time to build that up. So try not to let that network get stale, even when you are working. Even an hour or two a week, that's all it takes to network effectively when you're working full time.
He just touched on something that ties into your question, Linda. The time is now. Don't wait until you need a job in 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. Start connecting with people now. Who knows what's going to lay out in front of you in the next 2 to 3 years, but you want to be ready. If a layoff comes or if a downsizing happens or a company's relocating to Atlanta in 3 months, and you're either moving to Atlanta or you're no longer employed. All that kind of stuff happens, and you want to be in a position where you have an ability to reach out because you've begun the work and the process of building relationships. So help us help you means start talking to us now.
So the question was about when does a recruiter get involved in the process? Is that correct? So for the
Sorry about the question.
So John
answer?
and Ken both work for recruiting agencies firms, right? And the three of you that work internally for your companies, do you have anything to say about when you get involved? There's an open position, they've applied to something online, or they've had a friend or a colleague walk a resume in. At what point do you get involved?
So there's a few different times where I will get involved. One is to help the executive teams or senior leadership folks inside our organization think about their networks, and also find people in their networks that I want them to introduce me to because they don't think about their networks all the time. Also, to even when there is somebody that we've, it has been a referred into the company, my team, and more of the senior recruiters and myself, kind of take an objective look at, is this the right talent for the role that we're seeking, and will this person be successful, so that folks aren't just clouded by it's a referral. And we are assessing the candidates and their competencies and the skill sets that they're bringing to the table in more of an unbiased fashion. And then also too, we're assessing the candidate throughout the whole process. We are the person's point of contact throughout the whole process. And you'll be amazed at what candidates do in the process, which brings out their inner DNA, which, both positive and negative, how flexible they are, how accommodating they are, how professional they are, or on the flip side, on, the opposite side of that. And we, assess that along with, throughout the whole process as well. So that's typically where my team will get involved. And then also times there just isn't, San Diego is a small town, and there isn't, people aren't connected to the type of talent that we are seeking or needing for our organizations. Given my company works in predictive analytics and it's a fairly, new area, that, we will start looking for that talent, through our networks as well.
I think they mentioned earlier that the recruiter is a tool in your toolbox. We're not the end all be all. I have a client or I have a customer, and that client or customer is the hiring manager or the hiring team. So again, it circles back around to using your network and possibly making a connection with that team, somebody that's on that team or the hiring manager themselves. Because if they come to the recruiter and say, this is the person we want, then basically all we're doing is facilitating that relationship, facilitating the conversation to connect the dots. So, sometimes the recruiter really isn't a part of the equation other than just facilitating that conversation. So just do your research, figure out what the role is, who's on that team, who the hiring manager is. A lot of times, majority of the time, that's not as accessible as you'd like, but use your network.
And I just would, to answer your question very specifically, at PIMCO, it really depends on how niche of a skill set you have. My team, myself and all of our recruiters, we have pretty broad networks that we tap into. But if you have something that, is maybe a emerging markets, and your specialty is in the Chilean emerging markets, and we're looking for somebody who is fluent in Portuguese and Spanish, et cetera, a lot of those times we will reach out to our colleagues in the external market to look for some help, because it's just, we don't have that broad of a network. So, I'll say to you, we absolutely always use our network, but if you have a really niche skill set, likely we may reach out to external recruiters.
Great, thank you. You really covered that.
This is a question more on LinkedIn profile itself, outside that factor too much. What do you see as being more effective as far as your listing your experience and everything? Bullets or like a narrative? I mean, I've seen both, and I've tried to, model line after either one.
Bullets or what?
Or
narrative.
Narratives about what
Written
you've
out.
done there, or
I think it's the content. It doesn't matter the format, it's the content. And going back to my earlier statement, it's about, thinking about the role that you're applying for or you're seeking, and, what your personal brand is, and making sure that that passion shows through and the results you drove in that vertical are there, and the problems you solved are outlined clearly and concisely. And if you can do that personally better as a narrative versus a bullet, I think that's personal preference on my end.
Yeah, it's my personal preference. I always gravitate to bullets. I go through so much.
You need bullets.
Pardon?
You need bullets.
I need bullets.
I need bullets too.
I know what I'm looking for.
Please.
I do a lot of keyword searches. I'm sure we all do, and I want to pick that up. I want to know that you have certain things in your profile, and I think you can get your narrative across even in bullet points. I will be very honest, when I see a profile that is paragraphs and paragraphs, my eyes glaze over, and the likelihood that I'll read through it is slim, unfortunately. So bullets would be my preference.
What's the panel's take on chronological versus reverse chronological versus functional?
Chronological.
Thank you.
Resumes,
Now,
right?
with that being said,
Yeah, so-
there are some industries where functional rules the day. You need to figure that out. If you're in a particular space that we're not working in, but everybody on the planet has a resume that's built in that manner, build one that way.
Yeah, I mean, just to build on that, if you're looking at something in academia, research is obviously going to be up there.
Right.
So there's ways you can shift around your resume. And one thing I wanted to say is your LinkedIn profile much like your resume is a living document. You can't just, this Saturday, create your LinkedIn profile, and that's going to be your profile for the next year while you're searching for a job. As you're looking for roles, maybe change some things up here and there, as well as your resume. But it's definitely a living document. And I guess the other thing I would say is look at people that you want to emulate, that you want your careers to look like. Look at their LinkedIn profiles. Obviously, there's a reason they did their LinkedIn profile that way. I have a lot of people that look at my profile and they make theirs reflect how mine looks. I don't take credit for how mine looks. I got mine from people that have been there and done that. People that I've wanted to emulate in the recruiting industry. So just
please plagiarize.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
So, as a budding MBA, but have been out for several years and being an entrepreneur, we become a jack of all trades, but a master of none. And then we're wanting to enter that job market where you become into a big company, but you have many skills. And then when you go to have a recruiter does connect to you through LinkedIn, and they go, well, we want somebody to be the CEO, president, but we don't have that skill set as a master of what they're looking for. What is your recommendations of becoming from a jack of all trades to a master and to what the recruiters are looking for?
Wow.
That's a tough
A couple
one.
pieces there. One of them is what's the skill set that recruiters are looking for that executive level role. And if you do have a broader resume, how do you tighten it up? Is that?
I think so. I mean, it's because as an entrepreneur, you've done marketing, you've done leadership, you've done operations, maybe some finance, but now you're looking to go into a little bit of a bigger company or a bigger role. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's hard to go into that, to have a master's in any type of specific role, like I'm just an operations person or I'm just HR. So what do you do with entrepreneurs who are now in this transition stage?
I personally think this is where the self-assessment piece comes in really well and I've been in a startup. I worked in a startup, and it's a free-for-all, right? I mean, you're like managing the coffee vendor, and the next day you're talking to the CEO of a company, right? You're all over the map in terms of what you're doing. But what you need to be able to do is say, okay, what are the 2 or 3 skills that I enjoyed, that I really developed, that I'm really good at? And I want to be able to position my resume to articulate that, okay? Because everyone knows if you're at a startup, you're wearing a lot of hats, depending on your role. But you still have kind of there's still a key kind of like anchor to what you're doing at that startup. So you want to kind of build your resume off of that. My primary objective in this startup was to build this team to go out and find business, but I was involved in these other things too. You can highlight that, but then focus on what's the primary story you want to come out of that. That would be my advice.
I would say that, back to your point about knowing your audience as well, I'd love to get the 3 of your opinions on this, but in my experience, in a larger company, you tend to be an inch wide and a mile deep, right? So in other words, you're going to be, this is your role, and you better know it really well all the way down. In a smaller company, a startup, or even early stage or hyper growth like Lytics, for example, to John's point, you have to be a master of everything. You've got to be willing to manage that coffee vendor and call the CEO and get involved with the creative side of marketing and also close the sale and fix your own computer when it breaks, because you don't have a department of 50 IT folks that you can reach out to. So know your audience and know what your skill set is, and also understand that different audiences are going to want different things. To go in into Qualcomm, for example, with thousands of employees all over the world, having not had that domain expertise in one area, it's going to be pretty tough. But going into a small, startup or a spin-off of Qualcomm, maybe it's a different story. But I'd love to get the 3 of your opinions on that.
I align with yours. I think that a startup is going to give you, they're looking for more breadth versus depth. But I think you have to decide what are you going after, because I kind of heard 2 things in your question. Is it a bigger role, or is it a become a master of a functional area? So you have to decide which path they're going to take. And if you're going to become a master in an area, that might mean taking 2 steps back to take 2 steps forward. And going into a big company like a Qualcomm that offers best practices and they have a great foundational program, Or if you're going to go the other path, then you do focus on maybe a startup or a high growth company that's in earlier stages, where they are going to leverage all of your, your skill set, not all, but your strengths. So.
I do a lot of searches, for example, that are VP of sales and marketing. So they're blended roles. And most of our clients are between $5 and $200 million in revenue. That's about 90% of it, so in that small to mid-sized range. And in that situation, having the ability to wear the sales hat and the marketing hat is really important.
You have to.
Right, but when you're in a big company,
Right.
there is a chief marketing officer, there's a chief sales officer. They each have 4 or 5 VPs underneath them as well, which followed through with the directors. So it's very different depending upon the size of the organization. But I would just say know your audience and to Jessica's point, know your passion. Know what you bring to the table.
I think it also it's knowing the organization, the size of the organization, but the area within the organization that you're focusing on, knowing that particular area as well. PIMCO, there are some groups that are very entrepreneurial, and the head of the group wears 5 different hats. Where other areas within PIMCO, it's we operate as a bigger organization. So even within a certain company, if you are targeting a company, try to get some sense of that particular area within a company of how they operate.
Great. I had a question as if you could recommend any online self-assessment tools that can help some of us look at those things. And sometimes you can be asked several questions different ways, and it will ferret out nuances about which way you might be leaning in the skill set.
I'm a big fan of StrengthsFinder.
Yeah.
Because it won't tell you what job to be in, it'll tell you what you need to be doing in that job and how do you leverage your natural strengths. So it's what's his name? Buckingham, right? Gallup, right. But it's somebody, Buckingham is his name? Marcus, thank you. So Marcus Buckingham has written a number of books. He was a former Gallup poll statistician. And so it's Now Discover Your Strengths is the book, and then the StrengthsFinder is what came out of that.
Again, do your research, because companies, they have their employees do these tests.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all kind of, they have their biases. So at Intuit, we do StrengthsFinder. I was at USD and we did Myers-Briggs. So just, again, do your research and figure out what they're looking for. So when you go into that interview, or maybe put a little blurb on your resume or a little blurb on your LinkedIn that you were assessed to be a whatever.
ENTJ.
ENT, yeah. I can't remember what I was.
ENTJ?
So
ENTJ.
I like that we've moved into sort of
Depends on the day.
the transition into your questions, and it's lovely that you're asking some of my questions. They are, they're doing it, yes.
Okay, so going off curriculum, actually, I'm an entrepreneur in the position also. And what I've seen from my search is basically, I see 2 things. I see industry and role, right? The 2 things that are important to me. But, I'm same thing, jack of all trades kind of thing, but I don't have a lot of depth, and the position I want to get into requires that depth. Now, would you say it's more important to focus right now on getting into the correct industry? Because I'm seeing a lot of, on these requirements, I see a lot of industry-specific requirements. Like you should be in this role, or you should have been in this industry for 5 years, or 2 to 5 years. Is it important for me to start looking at the industry first, maybe just take something more broad, might not be in the role that I want, and move within the industry, or do the opposite, look for the role, and then look to move into the industry later? What do you think is maybe more important to focus on?
That's a tough call.
Yeah.
That's a $60,000 question.
Yeah, it depends on the industry. I mean, there are some industries, in my experience, like life sciences, that tend to be much more incestuous. They want to bring people in from other life science companies, biotech to biotech, pharma to pharma. But one of the things that we focus on with our clients, for example, every client always starts with, I want somebody from my industry. Right, that's always a given. So every job spec always says you must come from analytics or software or whatever it is, financial services, right? But then we always push back and say, well, why do you need that? Do you already have that domain expertise in your organization? Chances are, in most cases, they do. And I would say probably in 7 out of 10 cases, they'll say, yeah, you're right. If we have the industry experience, that's great, but it's not a requirement. It's more of a nice to have than a must have, is the term that we use. So it depends on the industry itself. That's what I would suggest.
I would also just add, back to Jessica's point of what's your passion? Are you more passionate about working with people all day long, so maybe something in human resources, versus you just love the credit markets and you want to, watch the bond market all day long.
Or you
So-
want to do spreadsheets all day.
Right.
Want to be in a cube, never talk to anybody.
Right.
And people like that, and that's
Right.
okay.
Exactly. And just one
wanna
other
travel.
point on your, maybe you don't have the details experience. If you don't specifically, look in your past and see if you can parlay any of those other experiences to whatever that particular industry is. I'm sure that you can think back into all of your other experiences. What's a tangential experience, and try to use that.
My rule of thumb that I tell candidates is that if you have 80% of what the job spec calls for, as long as it's the most important 80%, then still look at the position as a viable option. And that won't always work, but in some cases it will.
And sometimes it'll even be less.
Yeah.
60%.
Yeah, all right, there you go.
That's kind of
Depends on how long.
Yeah.
Well, for us, I mean, we're being retained to
Right.
to find at least 80%.
So you, it's
but-
like 90.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And also
80%,
look at geography. I mean, in San
True.
Diego, look at the market he was saying, it's very incestual. If you were to get into biotech or life sciences, San Diego's a really safe place to be because it's so saturated. And so if you want to stay in San Diego for the rest of your life, life sciences might be the way to go.
Exactly.
And there's so many, it's not you're not going to touch science if science isn't what you want to touch. If you want to be in the product development or business development or whatever it is, they have that in life sciences. So look at the geography as well.
It actually dovetails into a question I had coming into this. Is as far as sort of the local economy goes, where do you guys see what are the industries you guys are trying to place, like in San Diego? What are sort of the hot industries that you see as driving the job market here? And maybe the harder question is, what do you see as kind of the outward migration, where you see kind of things moving away from, or you're seeing from people here that are going to Silicon Valley or something like that?
Industry trends question, basically, right?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you this: manufacturing is not booming. Right? That's just a reality. I mean, there's so much
It's
stuff that's
national.
going overseas. That is probably not an industry that I would be pursuing if I was in your shoes. More professional services, those kinds of arenas, life sciences down here. I mean, it depends on the region. But manufacturing, from a macro level across the country, is really kind of getting constricted.
Well, I would say that their manufacturing is coming back to the continent. A lot of manufacturing coming back from China, from Taiwan, from the Philippines to Mexico.
Mexico, yeah.
So it is close-ish by, right? I mean, for example, how many of you are bilingual that speak at least 2 languages, right? That is a huge skill. How about 3 languages? Right, that's a big. I'm amazed at how often I will see a candidate's resume or LinkedIn profile, and then talk to them about a job. Turns out they speak multiple languages. They've started a business, and I'm thinking, why the heck is this not on your resume or LinkedIn profile? Think about ways to differentiate yourself. Right, what is your DNA, but also what are your differentiators? That's a big part of it. So if you are looking at manufacturing, and maybe you speak Spanish, knowing the trends about it coming back, onshore to Mexico, could be a benefit for you. We work across all industries to answer your questions, so we have a pretty wide variety, everything from retail to manufacturing to distribution, technology. It's across the board. There's a lot in the way of analytics. To Jessica's industry, that's happening. That's really a big booming industry right now.
Yeah, and I was previously in e-commerce, and we saw some PE firms come in and take some of our local kind of online retailers and offline retailers outside of San Diego. But then I have competition with, Amazon setting up a local office and GoPro setting up a local office. And so I don't want to, if you're committed to San Diego, you may have to search harder for that right role if it is in, online retail or in technology. But I wouldn't say, not to go there. But if you want, more opportunity, then I don't think life sciences is going anywhere.
And there's a lot of great companies and jobs in Orange County as well. You'd be amazed at how many people live in kind of Del Mar North in San Diego that commute to a job in Orange County, and vice versa. I have candidates that do that all the time. And that's one of the questions that we're asking our clients now is, are you open to somebody that's not in the office 5 days a week? And it's slow, but it's trending towards more and more folks saying yes. So look, if you are looking to branch out, maybe you want more of a software or maybe more financial services or real estate, there's a lot of that in Orange County.
Yep.
And it's not that far away.
There's absolutely, just to speak on that flex schedule, I know PIMCOs were advocates. We have a lot of folks that live in LA, some in North County that will do that, commute, 4 days come in, 1 day remote, sometimes even 2 days remote. So there are those options. Like, think broadly. I know sometimes when I talk to candidates, there's some trepidation about suggesting those things, but there are so many different flexible schedules or creative ways that a lot of companies are open to exploring with candidates.
Thank you.
Yeah. Back to the LinkedIn profile. Is that a reflection of what you've done or a reflection of what you want to do?
Both.
So it's finding a way to transition your skills if you're in a transitionary role. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, you're using it, again, it's a narrative, depending on how you want to do it, narrative or bullet, but it's a reflection of what you've done. And you want people that are visiting your LinkedIn profile to be like, okay, so he's done this, this, and this, what does he want to do? So LinkedIn gives you opportunities for you to talk about what you want to do. So much like on a resume, there's objective statements, or I don't even know what you call them, but
summary.
Summary. So there's a summary section, and that's a place where you can put your aspirations and what you want to be when you grow up.
The thing about LinkedIn that's a challenge, you always customize your resume when you apply to a job. You only have one shot with LinkedIn, so you've got to make it more universal. You've got to cast a much wider net. So to everybody's points earlier about making sure that you know what it is you want to do, who's in that job right now, find their LinkedIn profiles, what do they look like, and start to incorporate some of that experience and some of those keywords into yours as well. I mean, don't fabricate it, obviously, but make sure that the relevant keywords and buzzwords are on your profile as well.
So some of us MBAs here, I mean, it's to students in class, are doing that to further our career in the field we're in. Some of the other people are doing that to do a fairly deep turn, if you wish, or a sharp turn in careers. Let's say a life science researcher, very focused on a specific molecule that want to be a marketing and consumer product. Some quality engineer that want to be in finance, these kind of things. We have experience. I mean, some of us have worked in the industry. What kind of advice would you give these kind of people?
I mean, I wish I had an easy answer. From my experience, I would say try to find a mentor. Find somebody that either already did that, made that pivot. And again, you can search on LinkedIn to find folks, just use keywords of marketing and finance. And so they were in marketing and they moved to finance. So find some of those folks out there, hopefully to some folks from the UC system and UCSD especially, that you can reach out to and say, how'd you do that? What was the catalyst? What was the magic that you leveraged to make that change? That's one suggestion I would give. And then just get out there and you can volunteer, get involved with organizations. I mean, every trade association, every industry has a trade association, and every association needs volunteers. If you want to get exposed to a brand new industry, it's time to get out there and volunteer for Biocom, or SDSI, the San Diego Sports Industry Network, or AMA for the Marketing Association. There are a zillion groups out there you can volunteer for, and that's one of the best ways to get some exposure to that world.
And also, from an internal perspective, you should chat. I mean, I don't know what company you work for, but oftentimes, I mean, all of the organizations I've been involved in, if we have good talent that is interested in pivoting their career into another part of the organization, we will work with that person to align them, give them that opportunity. Now, it might not be a lateral move. Again, it might be one step back to take 2 steps forward, but I think leverage your current organization if you can, or if they're not that type of organization, then go into a more progressive organization that will do that. Most organizations, talent is so tight that most organizations, if they have top talent in their organization, they are going to want to keep that talent. And if you're known talent that does well in the organization, you're a cultural fit for the organization, they know your strengths, they will put you in the role that will get you, kind of help you to pivot there and leverage those strengths while building the areas that you need development in.
Thank you. I've seen 3 hands. It's 7:56. I want to be a little respectful of time. Can we take these 3 questions fairly quickly?
So those of us more mid-career, how do you evaluate the transition of the company you might be looking at, right? I mean, there's always this temptation, the grass is always green on the other side, but some of us, we're pretty happy where we are, but curious about the job market. How do you evaluate that other opportunity in an objective way so you don't make a mistake?
Talk to people.
You can elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, I think some of us are curious about, maybe I want to go here, maybe I want to go here. And, we're fairly happy where you are, where we are. At least I'm fairly happy where I am now, right? But I'm curious about what else is out there. And, the temptation for a lot of folks is that the grass is greener over there.
I would think about what's important. I would think about what's important to you, what motivates you as an employee, like how decisions are made, how flat the organization is, how much access you have to leadership, how much you actually, move the needle in the role you have today, or visibility, you have to the executive team today. Figure out what it is that motivates you. This is that self-awareness thing. And then go talk to other employees in that organization. And the recruiters, but I would say that you should talk to the employees and you will get the real deal. And I would tell them, this is what I value. Tell me how this works in your organization. Because I think that is where most people find that the grass isn't always greener, or maybe it is greener because of things they don't do and don't like at their current organization.
Yeah, and reach out to us. I mean, as far as John and myself go, we're talking to people on a regular basis, just kind of giving them guidance, feedback, market intelligence,
coaching.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, say, hey Ken, I've got this interview over at ABC Company.
Yeah.
What do you know? What do you think about them? I'm happy to tell you. If you want me to tell you, I'm going to tell you the good, bad, and the ugly, right? So use us as a resource, as a sounding board as well, and we're happy to help out. But again, I mean, you're part of a huge organization, which is the UC system, right? I mean, you've got a really large network among all of you here that spans the entire country. Pardon me. So use that network. If you're going to interview at ABC Company, do a search for people, in LinkedIn, for people that are from UCSD or wherever it is, UC whatever it is, that are in that company, in that department. You'd be surprised at how many folks you'll find. Now, they're not all going to call you back, but a good portion are if you leverage that commonality.
Absolutely.
Being part of the UC system, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
So don't underestimate the power of being in the UC system, or even your undergrad degree as well. I mean, the Naval Academy and Harvard, you've got some pretty great networks to tap into as well, John, right? Yeah. So now we aren't as fortunate to have gone to those two schools. However, if you went to USC or UCLA or Boston College, I mean, everybody wants to come to San Diego. How many of you were actually born in San Diego? How many of you were born here?
Zero.
Right? Everybody wants to come to San Diego. So a couple of us.
Hello.
Yeah. Sorry. Wow. So for that reason, there's a big network of folks that came here from someplace else. Chances are somebody out there came here from the same place that you came from. Find those people, leverage those folks, network, and make it a two-way street.
Yep. So this question is for Scott and Jessica. So I'm in enterprise technology. Sometimes wished I was in life sciences because I do want to stay here in San Diego for the rest of my career. But I'm wondering from the demand side in technology, do you find the right candidates for your positions often, or are you having to reach outside of San Diego to find the talent that you need to fill the roles that you have?
Depends on the role. So do you want to be more specific around the area you're looking at or interested in?
I was kind of more about...
For me, it depends on the role.
The demand side, what is the perspective of the demand side for technology professionals in San Diego? I know you have some specific functional roles that you tend to recruit for. It sounds like, Jessica, that you're a bit more general in terms of the roles that you hire for. You mentioned some of the companies that you compete against, but so it's more of a general question, not role specific, but in the technology industry.
Intuit is in a very unique situation because we have very little competition in the industry here in San Diego. I won't name the companies, but we really there isn't much, and Intuit is one of the best companies in the world. We're always at the top of almost every list as far as best places to work, best places to be, but and that's all great. So we definitely are able to pull from a great pool of candidates here in San Diego. But I'm seeing that we're getting a lot of our talent from the Valley, which is where our competition is. The Facebooks, LinkedIn's, Pinterest, those are right now our number one competitors. So Intuit is in a very unique situation because we are measuring our market, not necessarily what's in Irvine, and south to San Diego, but we're looking at the valley as well. So we do get quite a bit of talent that they decide to come south from the valley.
And then we recruit them over to Lytics. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and then they get their leadership experience and then come back to Intuit.
So I think that but I worked to Provide Commerce before, and we relocated a lot of talent to San Diego. I would say probably 2 out of 3 hires were, manager and above hires were relocated in. But at Lytics, it's more I wouldn't say it's startup, but it's more of a smaller company. So we are looking at talent. We also have hardware and firmware. So we have lots of, we have other companies that we can look at here in San Diego that also have that skill set. But on the software side, we do tend to relocate it in. But we also get some good talent from other competitors in the city as well, and switch talent around. So.
And I said one more, so Mary Beth.
So we've got your attention. We saw our LinkedIn profile. We reached out through LinkedIn to us. What advice would you give to us in the next steps of interacting with you?
We reached out to you for a specific job?
Yes.
And we've already had a phone conversation?
No. It's at the point you just reached out to us on LinkedIn. You saying, can I send you a job description or a candidate's brief? And then what advice do you give to us in continuing that relationship to get to the next step?
Well, I don't know, for us as a search firm, so if we reached out to you, so all of our, not all, 89% of our placements are folks that are currently employed. So we're doing a lot of proactive outreach to folks that are in LinkedIn, that are in our database and what have you. So if we reach out to you for a specific job, it's because we already know you have that skill set based on our knowledge of you, or referral to you, your LinkedIn network, your resume, whatever it is. So at that point, to be honest, really you don't need to worry, because if we reached out to you, we're going to call you. That's exactly right. Now, if you're talking about what happens, let's say we reach out to you for job A and job A is not the right fit or you're not interested, then what happens kind of in phase 2? Is that maybe part of your question?
That could be.
Okay. It doesn't matter, just kind of staying in touch. Then it's, hey, Ken, I'm not the right fit, or I don't have any interest in this job, it's not big enough for me, or I want to do more management.
Or I don't want to move, I love my job,
Right,
I'm happy.
exactly. But I know my friend Sally, who's over at ABC Company, she's got her eyes and ears open. She might be someone worth calling, right? So that's where it's that two-way street. It's kind of that, how can we help each other out? And I'm going to remember that next time around when something else comes up. And from that perspective, then we can stay in touch and keep that dialogue. So then we're going to ask you to send a resume to us. So I don't know how you guys feel, but just FYI for a search firm, if you send me your resume as an attachment in LinkedIn, it's more difficult than you might expect.
Yeah.
Because I have to grab that resume, export it to my hard drive, then import it into my cloud-based ATS system. So it's great that LinkedIn allows you to do it, but unfortunately on the recruiting side, I don't know how you guys are, but it's more cumbersome than it needs to be. So I'd rather that we connect, right?
And email it.
And then now you have my actual email address, because we're first degree connections, and now you can send me your resume, hopefully as a PDF or a Word document. Don't make it some crazy weird dot whatever, JPEG kind of file. I see resumes that are written in Excel. You'd be surprised, it's really bizarre. So make it obvious, right? But so send it that way to us, and I guarantee you there'll be a continued dialogue at that point.
So to go back to your question about next steps, so what happens next? So basically the conversation went from a phase of inquiry on our side, asking you about where you are at in your life and your career. From then on, it's going to be transactional. There's going to be action items. So I think it kind of happens naturally, and I don't think there's going to be too much ambiguity in a conversation like that. And then going back, I think it was one of the first questions, and in my mind, I'm like, do I say it? Do I not say it? If you email a recruiter or somebody that could potentially offer you a job or however it is, if they don't respond, if it's crickets, they don't respond at all, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not interested in you. It just means go ahead and send them another email in maybe 2 weeks, just saying, hey, I'm following up on this email, and if you don't hear anything, it's important. I respond to everybody, but sometimes you won't get a response. Leave it alone, because you don't want to damage your reputation or your brand at the company. if maybe something happens later on where there's a position that's available. So I was just thinking about that question early on, just how does that all happen, and so I wanted to make sure I put that out there on if it gets to a point where there's crickets, no response, it might be time to step back.
Is it helpful for you guys to get a phone call? If they email once, no response, and then call you?
Do not call me.
Yeah.
I never.
I don't. At work, I don't. Yeah, at work, I don't answer the phone.
I don't answer the
When I'm
phone
working
either.
from home, I don't answer the phone. Email. And going back to the
Yeah.
attachments, don't send me anything on LinkedIn. Hopefully your LinkedIn is pretty complete. So shoot me an email. I think most of us may have our work email on our LinkedIn. You don't have to dig too much to get that. Shoot us an email. PDF is usually best.
Just one more point to add in your conversations. Honesty is the best policy. Be honest with what you want, what you're looking for. If I've reached out to you, I found you, I think you have a great background, but then be honest in the dialogue. If you really don't think you can relocate, or if you really, the only reason that you're going to take this next job is because you want a 20% bump, like be as honest as you can from the very beginning, because the last thing that, as a recruiter, you invest so much time into people, and 3 months into the process and you find that there's something that you weren't honest about at the very beginning that we could have talked about, it can be very frustrating.
And very damaging, too.
And very damaging, yeah.
And I would say also, just in terms of just organization, as I mentioned, we get hundreds of emails every day. If you can customize a subject line, it makes it really easy and a better chance of you getting some kind of response. VP of Business Development, job number 470, and it's something unique about your skill set.
Put your name in there.
Bilingual, experience in Chile, whatever the example was that you gave before, Linda, right? Put that in the subject line, because we sort things based on the subject, because we have so many emails to go through. It's really tough. So
I think that's a really good point. So we go by requisition numbers. If you put the requisition number in the subject line, that helps so much. So you don't have to pay me for that.
Exactly.
Nice. Well, I'm a little concerned. Do you want to take I saw you point to the, it's 8 to 10. Should we wrap it up, or do you want to take one or two more?
Is it a short question?
Is that a short question, quick one?
What do I do with my life?
We can take it up.
I find myself on the other side of the table. I've been looking for some to hire a recruiter to help me from the mid-level management position. I've seen a lot of recruiting firms specialize in executive positions, and quite some in the entry-level position. Some are mid-level management, recruiters seem to be hard to find. Any thoughts on that, or finding these suitable for?
It depends on the function and the industry. I mean, John and I have a little bit of overlap, but I'm really specialized in sales and marketing. So if it's a mid-level to high-level sales and marketing role, I can certainly help you.
You're retained primarily, right?
What's that?
You're retained primarily.
Yeah, we're a retained firm. So we have a small upfront investment that we take. It's not a full retainer, but it's a small upfront investment.
Okay. Right. We do that too.
Yeah.
Retainer piece.
So we can talk to you, and I mean, if I'm not the right person, I'll tell you who is. I have a lot of referrals that I send out all the time, because not everybody is the right fit for us, and vice versa.
For Lucas Group, I mean, we're a contingency firm. We're in the professional staffing arena. I mean, I was telling you earlier, most of our placements are going to be $90,000 to $200,000. Right, so I'm not placing, or my partners aren't placing $350,000 CFOs. It's just we don't do that unless we've had a relationship with that company for 20 years and we've grown with that company. That's just not what we do. And we work on a lot more searches because we're working on the opportunity to hopefully land a few, right? He's going to be a little more selective because he's going to take an investment up front from you, and you're going to be committed to him. Now, if you end up not hiring from him, he still has had an engagement fee of some kind, right? So you can send me an email. Perhaps I can introduce you to somebody in our firm that might be able to help you, because we have several different functional areas and industry areas of expertise.
I'll stick around. I'll be happy to give you some suggestions. Yeah, no problem.
Should we give them a round of applause? Your advice was wonderful. Right on. So many wonderful things were shared today. Thank you all. I will encourage all of you to update your careers rating profile so we can find you from a careers team when a recruiter or a talent acquisition director calls us and says, hey, we're looking for this kind pathway talent. If you have an updated resume and profile, I can help find you and pass your resume along. So I encourage you to do that. Thank you. Drive safe. If it's wet out there, be extra careful.